What's up, guys? It's Ty, aka Timberlands, and I am back with another video, so stick around to watch. Y'all, so this video is going to be my breastfeeding journey, all things pumping, lactation, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to start by kind of giving you like an overview of our journey and then kind of telling you what I've been doing for the past couple months. Before we left the birth center after she was born, we attempted to get breastfeeding established and we weren't able to do that. They did notice that she had a tongue tie and they said that it could have been preventing her from latching properly. So, they just told me to continue trying when I got home. So initially when we got home, I did have to syringe feed her. And I basically just had to express some colostrum and just feed it to her that way. By day 2 or 3, I actually got her to latch and she breastfed. And it was going well for like a few days. And then we kind of like had some regression. And I really couldn't pinpoint what it was. But I really wasn't wanting to give her a bottle yet. So if she didn't breastfeed, I would just have my mom syringe feed her. And then we would just try another breastfeeding session on her next feeding. And so that kind of like is what I was doing for 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks, I was mainly breastfeeding. And then there just came a time where she just did not want to latch at all. Like it just wasn't happening. And I was spending so much time trying to get her to latch that I was getting depressed about it. She was getting frustrated. I was getting frustrated. We were both just frustrated. And, being up at 3 a.m. upset is just, it's not good for anybody. So at that point, probably by week 2 or week 3, I did introduce the bottle to her. So basically I would just pump and then I would bottle feed her. And so I would just try to have my mom bottle feed her so that I could still try to breastfeed her. And this is kind of how I operated for weeks and weeks and weeks. So as we're, in this kind of push and pull situation where like I try to breastfeed, she doesn't want to do it. And then sometimes she wants to breastfeed and all the things. I was starting to establish my milk supply. And obviously this is my first baby, so I really didn't know what to expect. But very, very quickly, I noticed that I had an oversupply. So within, I want to say my milk came in probably like day 4 or 5. And it was so much that I had to start pumping because she wasn't emptying my breasts enough. And I would get engorged, I would have pain, and I just, I had to start pumping to get it out. So in addition to just having relief, pumping also, I think, triggers your body to make more milk. And so, I don't know, it just kind of got crazy at one point, and I just had like a ridiculous amount of milk coming in. So I started a freezer stash. Probably about within that first week of my milk being like more mature, I was getting like 30 to 40 ounces of milk per day. Because she wasn't exclusively on the breast, I did start like building a huge stash because I had to pump so much and there was just so much milk flowing that I just couldn't keep up with it. So initially, whenever I was kind of breastfeeding and pumping, I would pump out about 6 ounces per session. And since I probably pumped around every time that she fed, that was probably about like 8 times per day, so maybe like 48-ish ounces per day. And then as I transitioned to just pumping, which that's what I've done now, it has like increased to about 60 something ounces per day. At this point, I still really couldn't figure out what was the disconnect or what the problem was. Her tongue tie issue resolved, and so she doesn't have any mobility issues anymore. But I just really couldn't figure out what the issue was. And so it did take a lot of trial and error and trying to figure out like what's going on, to see why she wouldn't breastfeed. But eventually I just started exclusively pumping. As I became an exclusive pumper, I learned a lot about why our breastfeeding journey was so challenging. And part of the reason, well, one, I will say my baby is very particular. So sometimes she likes the boob and sometimes she does not. Even now, sometimes she'll randomly feed and then sometimes she just won't. So she's just really particular in that sense. She knows how to latch and everything, but she just, she does what she wants to do. But also because I have an oversupply, what I would notice is that when she would try to feed sometimes, she would start sputtering and choking and, seemed like she was having some trouble breathing while she was on the boob. And I think my oversupply contributed to me having a very forceful flow, and it was too much for her. So sometimes I would just have to catch her on a good day where she actually wanted to breastfeed and the flow wasn't so bothersome. But for the most part, my flow is very, very heavy. I have a very fast letdown, and I think that was kind of causing some of the problems as well. And in addition to those things, like just having an oversupply and constantly having to try to express milk, it was a huge reason why, that breastfeeding just wasn't working for us. Breastfeeding already didn't go well. So now pumping wasn't going well, and I was just very, very frustrated. But, there are many nights where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This has just been like a mental battle for me, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I would go back and forth, like, should I just switch the formula? Should I let our stash run out? I just would go back and forth with that every single day. And then in the middle of the night was when it was the worst. I was just like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is just so terrible. But I told myself not to quit. Like, probably about 5 or 6 weeks, I was just like, I'm not gonna quit just yet. Now, even after that, I would have days where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, literally earlier this week, I was like, I don't want to pump anymore. I'm so tired of it. But it did slowly get a little better. And so around week 6, I'm almost 10 weeks postpartum. So about a month ago, around week 6, I started dropping pumps. So I only dropped 1 pump. Now, some people are like, oh, that's so early. Like, you're gonna mess up your milk supply. Your milk supply is gonna take a dip. Let me tell you something. I wanted to take a dip. Having an oversupply is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I have so much milk for my baby. Right now, I have a deep freezer full of frozen milk that she's gonna be able to drink over the next several months. However, having an oversupply has definitely taken a toll on me, like mentally and physically, because I have to pump so much. If I don't pump, I'm in pain. I have a very sensitive letdown as well. So I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with that, but I can think about my baby and my milk will let down. I'll see her, I'll hear her, and my milk will let down. Sometimes I'm not doing anything and my milk will let down. And then with that comes leaks and all the things. And so it's still been pretty frustrating for me. So I wasn't worried about my milk supply taking a dip, because at some point my midwife and I decided that we're going to try these different remedies to try to decrease my milk supply, just so that it wasn't so stressful on me. And none of them worked. My body is convinced that I have multiples or something like that. I'm not really sure. My milk supply is just really crazy. So I started dropping pumps around 6 weeks, and I initially only dropped 1. So I dropped our 3 a.m. pump. And my baby still eats every 3 hours. She's still on breast milk exclusively. So, I was still up, but not having to pump at 3 a.m. really boosted me during the day, because I could just feed her and then go back to sleep. That did kind of help me stick to pumping a little longer, just because I got, I was getting a little bit more sleep, and that little bit made a huge difference. And so my milk supply after dropping that pump did not change. literally was still the same. If not, I started producing a little more overnight, where like in the morning, that first pump in the morning, I will pump out like 20 plus ounces, like a ridiculous amount or something like that. Now the struggle with that is that I would wake up engorged, so my boobs would be like completely full. They'd be painful. For a while, I was having clogged ducts like every other day. So yes, I got a little more sleep. Was it comfortable? Not necessarily, but you know, I was hoping over time my breasts would just kind of be like, oh, okay, we don't have to make milk overnight anymore because she's not expressing. No, that didn't happen either. So over these past few weeks, I've dropped a couple more pumps, and now I pump 5 times a day. And so I do 6 a.m., 10 to 6, and then 10, and then I'm done. And so that has been a much better schedule for me. It's a lot more manageable. I kind of have a little more time to myself, a little more free time. My milk supply has not changed. I still produce just as much milk as I did before. And, you know, it still has its moments, but it's more manageable. I think one of the biggest challenges with exclusively pumping is having to be hooked up to a machine, like initially 8 times a day. And most people recommend that you pump 7 to 8 times a day up until you're 12 weeks. That does not, I'm, you know, maybe it's just me, but when you have an oversupply, that is too much. I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't work, for everybody. And so you have to, if you are going to be an exclusive pumper, or you are starting, or, you know, maybe you're just thinking about it, do what works for you. And that's the only thing you can do. Do what's best for you and the baby. Don't get so wrapped up in having your baby on the breast. Like, if you exclusively pumping, your baby is still getting breast milk, and that's just as good. But also, if you're having negative responses to pumping, you know, fed is best. As long as your baby is eating and growing and healthy and developing, that is all that matters. And I had to convince myself of this almost every single night because it was just taking a really big toll on me. So I'm just happy that I've kind of finally established a routine, and probably in about another month, I'm going to drop another pump or something like that. Probably the super early morning pump. That's kind of where we are. It's just been a crazy roller coaster. We went from trying to exclusively breastfeed to breastfeeding and pumping to breastfeeding, pumping, bottle, to now just exclusively pumping, which is working better than us being frustrated at 3 a.m. trying to nurse a baby that does not want the boob. And then just all the struggles with exclusively pumping. Let's get to these pumps. So initially I was using I think it's the Lansinoh double pump, like I don't know. I will put the link to that one down if you're interested in that. That was the one I was using initially. And so I am a busybody, and I like to get things done, and pumping just takes so much time, like anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. You're hooked up to a machine and you can't do much. I couldn't stand it. So some weeks ago, probably like over a month ago, I got a different pump because the Lansinoh one, like it was not working as far as me being able to try to do things and have that pump attached to me. And that was making me more frustrated. I think it's just not being able to be mobile with the pump. So I got this other wearable pump off of Amazon, and I'm going to put the link to that in the description because I did fall in love with this pump. I'm going to give you like an honest review on it, but it was much better than the Lansinoh pump. Also, I noticed that the amount of milk that I got out using this pump was so much more than the Lansinoh. Now, I'm not sure if it's just because my supply increased over time or if the suction was just way better. But let me tell you, that suction, I'm finally adjusted to it, but that suction is powerful. You do not need to have that pump high at all. in order for you to get all of your milk and empty your breasts completely, because it'll do it every single time. So what I would do is I would just put the cups in my bras. I had a fanny pack, and I just put the little base in the fanny pack, and I can just kind of move around and do things. Now, the downside is that if you are an oversupplier and you get a lot of milk out of one session, these can become a bit of a headache, which is where I have kind of my knocks against the product, because the bowls will get full and then they'll start to leak, and sometimes it'll leak into the air chambers where the air is coming from, and that's really not good. So that kind of sucks. Basically in the mornings I have to pump, store it in the bag, and then put the pump back on because it was getting too full, and that is pretty annoying, because once I take the pump off, I just want to keep it off. But also what I started doing is I got a manual pump where I will pump, and then as soon as those bowls got full, I will store my milk, and then I would just manually pump the rest of it out just to empty my breast, so that I have that full 4-hour stretch in between pumps without getting engorged. And that's been working a lot better. The manual pump, I don't really have any negative things to say about it. I have the Modella manual pump, and it's I don't have any negative feelings or responses to using it, so it's been really nice to use. But it just kind of keeps it more convenient, so I don't have to reattach that pump and put it together and clean it. It's too much. So when I got to the point where I was dropping pumps, I was trying to prepare for possibly my supply taking a huge dip, which it didn't, so that's cool. But I did go ahead and buy some formula just to supplement, to make the supply stretch until she's at least 6 or 7 months, which I definitely think it will at this point. But I was just trying to be prepared. So I do have formula. I have not put her on it yet. I'm not sure if I will, but I have it, just in case. I've heard that formula fed babies sleep a little longer because formula takes longer to digest, and typically babies feel a little fuller for longer with the formula. So I don't know, I've been tempted to give her maybe a formula bottle at night so she can just sleep through the night or something like that, because she still gets up every 3 hours to eat, sometimes every 2.5. She's always hungry. That's kind of the downside to having an exclusively breastfed baby, is just they're gonna be hungry very quickly. So I have a formula, haven't used it yet. The brand is Hip, and I can put the kind that I have down in the description. It's organic. It's really good, but I just haven't used it yet, so we'll kind of see how that goes, see how we do this next week or two, and then I'll come back with an update on that if I start. Just to kind of wrap this video up, I know this was a lot of information, and I'm really, really sorry if this was all over the place. My mind is kind of all over the place right now. But just to wrap up the video, if you are either a breastfeeding mom, or you're pumping and breastfeeding, or whatever combination or one or the other that you're doing, just know that at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you first, because you have to be good so that your baby can be good. So if breastfeeding is really taking a toll, try pumping. If pumping is taking a toll, formula is just as fine. Formula babies turn out perfectly fine. So don't let, I know that I'm usually on some kind of mom blog. Don't let any of these blogs or any family members or friends or any outside source make you feel guilty for not, breastfeeding your baby. You have to do what's best for you and your baby. And what's best for your baby most of the time is going to be what's best for you, because you have to be okay in order for your baby to be okay. So just remember that fed is best. It took me weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to be okay pumping and bottle feeding. I just didn't want to do it. I felt so terrible. Even now I'm still dealing with putting my baby on formula. I feel bad that I'm even considering it, but at the end of the day, you just have to do what's best for you. And as long as your baby is eating, that is the best thing that you can do for your child. So where I am now, I do plan to pump for a few more months. And I think probably once I get to month 5, which is going to be, hold on. Month 5 will be August for me. So just the summer. Once I get to month 5, I am probably going to stop pumping altogether. I'm going to start weaning when month 5 comes around, just because I have so much milk, and I'm going to keep adding to it. She's going to be having some type of breast milk probably until she's like 8 to 9 months, because that's how much milk I have. I do plan to wean myself off of pumping by August. And I still will have met my goal of having my baby on breast milk for at least 6 months. So that's all. That's all that matters, and I'm happy that I even made it this far. Next week we'll be at the 3-month mark, and the 5 pumps per day has been going pretty decently. Like, it sucks sometimes, but I'm dealing with it. I think that it'll be okay. My next video, I'm probably gonna do my nursery tour, and I'll probably start to get into postpartum weight loss. Now, it's really difficult being a single mom, not like single with relationship status, but just, you know, doing the mom thing alone. It's very difficult to kind of keep up with things like working out and taking care of yourself and going to get your nails done and stuff like that. So I'm slowly trying to work gym sessions into my schedule, and I will kind of update y'all on that probably in a couple weeks, just because like this past week has been super crazy and I have not been able to work out. But when I get to my newborn or infant routine, I'll kind of address that, you know, just some ways that you can actually exercise if you have like a baby who constantly needs your attention, which is my baby. But my next video should be the nursery tour. I have to just get the nursery together because I have stuff everywhere and it ain't looking real presentable. But otherwise, that's pretty much all I have for you today. So yeah, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. If you have any questions about my breastfeeding and pumping journey, please let me know. The Linktree link is down in the description, so feel free to follow me on social media. But otherwise, that's all I have for y'all today. So I will see y'all next time.